My parents used my savings to help my brother buy a house, I found out, when the bank declined my application. Hi, my name is Alex. I'm 28 years old, and for the past 10 years I've done everything right. Or at least, everything I was told was the right thing to do. I went to college, got a degree in finance, landed a stable job straight out of university, and lived frugally so I could save for my future. I didn't take lavish vacations, didn't buy a flashy car, and passed on a lot of nights out because I had a dream to buy my own home before I turned 30. That dream came crashing down with a single email from the bank. I still remember the moment vividly. I was sitting at my desk during lunch break, refreshing my inbox compulsively, waiting for that approval. I had found the perfect little house, nothing fancy, but it had a small backyard and just enough space for me and maybe a dog someday. I was ready. Down payment saved, credit score pristine. I had even spoken to a mortgage advisor who said everything looked great, and then the rejection hit me like a brick. Due to insufficient funds in your savings account, we are unable to proceed with your mortgage application at this time. I blinked. I stared. I read it again. I knew what was in my account, or at least I thought I did. $48,000. That's what I had saved over years of careful budgeting and side gigs. So I logged in, heart racing, convinced there must be some mistake. And my heart stopped. My savings account had a balance of $462.73. At first I thought I'd been hacked. I panicked. I called the bank. I demanded a freeze on all transactions. But when they pulled up the records, their tone shifted. The transfer had been authorized from my end over a series of transactions, roughly 2 months ago. What do you mean authorized? I remember yelling. I didn't move that money. Sir, the transfers were made through linked accounts, the woman on the phone said calmly. Specifically, a joint access account with secondary permissions. Joint access? It took a few seconds before the implication landed. My parents. Years ago, when I was 18 and starting college, they insisted I open a savings account with their help. For emergencies, they said. We'll be co-signers just in case something happens. At the time, it made sense. I trusted them. They were my parents. I never removed them from the account. I never thought I had to. Turns out, that was a massive mistake. That night, I drove to my childhood home in a daze. I didn't call ahead. I just walked in and found them both sitting in the living room, watching a game show like nothing had happened. I confronted them, and what they said broke something in me. We were going to tell you, Alex, my mom said, eyes wide and hands trembling slightly. It was for your brother, my dad added quickly. He needed help. It was a once-in-a-lifetime deal on that house, and we couldn't let him lose it. You know how hard it's been for him. Yeah, I knew. Jake, my older brother, the golden child, the one who partied through college, dropped out in his third year, and has been bouncing between jobs for nearly a decade. The one who borrowed money and never paid it back. The one they always made excuses for. They used my life savings to buy him a house, and they didn't even tell me. I couldn't sleep that night. I kept staring at the ceiling, my mind replaying every conversation, every moment that now felt like a setup. My parents hadn't just taken the money. They'd made a decision behind my back, with zero hesitation, like it was their right. I didn't respond to any of their calls the next day. I needed space to think, but they didn't give me any. My mom showed up at my apartment around noon with a bag of food, like that would somehow smooth things over. She let herself in, still had the spare key I never got around to asking back, and acted like nothing happened. I didn't say much. I couldn't. I was afraid that if I started, I wouldn't be able to stop. She sat down on the couch, looked at me, and finally said, "You have to understand, your brother needed help. He and Kelly were drowning in rent. They're starting a family. We just did what any parent would do." That line, any parent? Was I not their child too? I asked her, quietly, calmly, if they would have ever done the same to my brother, if he'd been the one saving, planning, building. Her silence said everything. What stung the most wasn't the money. It was realizing that I'd always been the backup plan, the reliable one, the one they could count on to sacrifice. They hadn't just dipped into my savings. They'd redefined what I meant to them. And no amount of casserole or forced smiles could undo that. That week, I went completely no contact. I changed the locks, removed my dad from every financial account, just in case there was anything else I missed. I told work I needed a few days off and drove out of the city. No destination in mind, just away. T was on that trip that I started to think about boundaries, about loyalty, about how much we let people get away with just because they're family. And I realized something important. Being related to someone doesn't mean they're entitled to you. It's not betrayal from a stranger that wrecks you. It's betrayal from the people you were taught to trust without question. When I came back, I made two decisions. First, I wasn't going to pretend everything was okay. Second, I wasn't going to stay quiet about it anymore. I'll tell you what happened when I finally confronted my brother. Because, yes, I did. And no, it didn't go how you think. I waited 2 weeks before I reached out to Ryan. Not because I wasn't angry anymore. I was. But I needed time to cool off, to gather my thoughts, to make sure I wasn't walking into that conversation fueled only by rage. I wanted clarity. I wanted to look him in the eyes and understand how the hell he thought this was okay. He agreed to meet at a coffee shop near his new house. The irony wasn't lost on me. I got there 10 minutes early, sat near the window, sipping burnt coffee and watching cars pass by. Every minute that ticked by felt like it was dragging a weight behind it. When Ryan finally walked in, wearing his usual smug half-smile, it hit me how much resentment I had built up over the years and never let myself feel. It wasn't just about the money, it was everything. Every time he got a pass, every time our parents bailed him out and patted him on the back for surviving the very problems he created himself. He sat down and opened with a joke. Something about how dramatic I'd been lately. That was his read on this. Dramatic. I let him talk, let him explain how it wasn't a big deal, and how we're family and we take care of each other. He said it like he believed it, like this was just some minor hiccup that I'd overreacted to. I asked him if he knew where the money came from. He hesitated, for the first time, then looked down. That was all the confirmation I needed. So I asked him again, "You knew, didn't you?" He shrugged. "Look, I didn't ask too many questions. Mom said they had a way to help us. I assumed it was from their savings." Bullshit. Our parents never had that kind of money just lying around. He knew. He knew, and he didn't care. Or worse, he cared, and still thought he deserved it more than I did. I told him exactly how long I'd been saving, that I'd skipped trips, worked extra hours, turned down experiences, just to make sure I had that financial cushion. And that now it was gone. And his response? "You'll bounce back. You always do." That sentence broke something in me, because that's what I was to them, the one who always bounced back. The one who could afford to be robbed of years of effort because I'd somehow survive it. They expected me to carry my brother's weight like I had since we were kids. Only now it wasn't just chores or consequences. It was my actual future. I stood up. I told him, not angrily, but with the kind of cold clarity that comes when something inside finally snaps, that I was done. Done being the fallback, the fixer, the reliable sibling who gets stepped on because he's too strong to break. He looked confused, like I was overreacting, like I was ruining some unspoken agreement we were all supposed to keep. But I walked out, and I didn't look back. In the days that followed, I sent my parents one final message. It wasn't cruel, just clear. I'm stepping away, indefinitely. Don't contact me unless it's about returning what you took, emotionally or financially. Otherwise, I'm moving on. They didn't respond. But that silence? It felt less like loss and more like relief. For the first time in my life, I wasn't the one cleaning up someone else's mess. I wasn't playing the mature one, I was just choosing myself, and I wish I had done it sooner. Update. 6 weeks later. A lot has changed, and I'm not staying silent anymore. First off, thank you to everyone who reached out. I never expected that kind of response. Hundreds of comments, messages, personal stories. It honestly blew my mind. For the first time, I didn't feel like I was overreacting. I felt heard and validated, and that mattered more than I can say. One of the biggest things that came out of all this, someone messaged me, a lawyer who follows Reddit for fun, and offered a free consult. He told me something I hadn't even considered. Apparently, what my parents did wasn't just unethical, it was potentially illegal. See, because I was over 18 when the account was opened and it was under my name only, those savings weren't family money or shared resources. They were mine, full stop. If my parents accessed the account without my permission and used that money for something I didn't authorize, it could be considered theft or conversion of funds, depending on the jurisdiction. Even worse, the bank records clearly showed the withdrawal was made via online banking from my dad's device. I had the IP logs, I had the timestamps, I had the emails. It was all there. I felt sick reading the message. Not because I was surprised, I wasn't, but because this whole time I'd been treating what happened like a betrayal inside the family, when in reality it was a crime. So yeah, I hired a lawyer. It was awkward, uncomfortable. It felt like crossing a line I never thought I'd have to draw. Suing your own parents? That's the kind of sentence that feels like it belongs in a bad movie. But I also realized they crossed that line first. I didn't go into it looking for revenge. I just wanted what was mine, what I had earned, what they took behind my back while smiling to my face. My lawyer drafted a demand letter. It was clear, professional, and scathing in its precision. We gave them two options. 1, return the full amount, with documentation proving the source of repayment, within 30 days. 2, or we file a formal civil complaint and take them to court. We also included a freeze request to ensure they couldn't liquidate or move any remaining assets tied to my name. I didn't send it directly. I couldn't. My lawyer did. The fallout? Oh yeah, that's where things really started to spiral. When the letter was delivered, all hell broke loose. At first, it was dead silence. No texts, no calls, just silence. For about 4 days, I thought maybe, just maybe, they were stunned enough to realize the weight of what they'd done. Then came the explosion. My mom was the first to call. I didn't pick up. She left a voicemail sobbing, saying she couldn't believe I would do this to my own family, and that I was letting some blood-sucking lawyer turn me against them. She said Dad hadn't slept in 2 nights, and that my brother was beside himself with guilt. That part? Yeah. I call BS. Because the next day, I got a message from my brother. Not a call. A message. 1 line. You're really gonna tear this family apart over some money? No apology, no explanation, no ownership. Just pure guilt tripping. I didn't reply. 2 days later, my uncle, my dad's older brother, called me out of the blue. We hadn't spoken in years. He said he'd heard about the situation and wanted to mediate. I let him talk for 5 minutes before I cut him off and asked, "Did they tell you they emptied my savings to buy my brother a house behind my back?" He paused for a long moment. Then he said, "No, they said you were having a breakdown over finances." I laughed. Actually laughed. The audacity was surreal. By the end of that week, my parents sent an email, a formal one, through a lawyer, not their own, just a legal advisor. It basically said they were willing to settle the matter amicably, but felt I was blowing things out of proportion, and requested a meeting as a family before any funds were returned. My lawyer advised me not to respond directly, so we replied with 1 sentence. Full repayment. In full within the remaining 22 days, or we proceed with the filing. Suddenly, they found the money. I don't know how. I don't care. I suspect it wasn't even from their own pockets. There's a good chance they pressured my brother to take out a personal loan. Either way, the money was returned to my account in 3 separate transfers. 2 from my dad's business account, 1 from a newly opened account in my brother's name. We documented everything. Got it notarized. Case closed? Legally, yes. But personally? Emotionally? Number. Let me tell you something I've learned. Getting justice doesn't feel like winning. It feels like surviving. Because once the dust settled, once the money was back, I looked around and realized there's nothing left of my family. I blocked them all. Phone, email, socials, everything. Not out of rage, out of necessity. Because here's the thing, when the people who raised you steal from you, lie to you, and then manipulate the narrative to make you the villain, that's not a family anymore. That's a sinking ship. And I chose not to go down with it. Update 2. It's been half a year since I took legal action against my own parents. Half a year since I found out that the people who raised me were capable of betraying me in a way I never thought possible. And somehow, I'm okay. Actually, I'm more than okay. I bought my own house. Yeah. After years of saving, planning, working extra hours and weekends, then watching it all vanish overnight, I still managed to do it. It's a modest 2-bedroom place just outside the city, nothing fancy, but it's mine, fully mine. No one else's name is on the deed, no strings attached, no secrets. And every time I unlock that front door, I remember what it took to get here, and how I'll never let anyone take that from me again. The place needed some work, but I decided to do most of it myself. Painted the walls, refinished the floors, even built my own bookshelves, which is something I never thought I'd have the patience for. There's something healing about working with your hands, something grounding. It's like with every screw I drilled, I was slowly rebuilding not just a house, but a piece of myself. As for my family, we haven't spoken since the legal settlement was finalized. There were a few half-hearted attempts on their part. A birthday text from Mom that said, "Hope you're well." Nothing more. My brother tagged me in a meme once, then deleted it a few hours later. No apology, no ownership, just weak signals like tossing a paper airplane into a storm and hoping it lands. I didn't respond, not because I'm still angry, but because I'm done being the only one who takes accountability seriously. If they ever want a real relationship with me again, it'll take more than vague messages and guilt trips. It'll take truth. And that's not something they've ever been good at. But I'm not bitter. I found peace in distance. I've also found people who treat me like family, friends who helped me move, who came over with pizza and paintbrushes, who celebrated when I got my keys and didn't once ask what I owed them. People who've never once made me feel like love has to be earned with silence or sacrifice. There's even someone special. We met at a hardware store of all places, over shared frustration with the last pack of overpriced light bulbs. It started with sarcasm, turned into small talk, and somehow became something real. We're taking it slow. No expectations. Just presence. And for the first time in a long time, I don't feel like I have to prove myself to be loved. I sometimes wonder what would have happened if I never found out. If the bank hadn't declined my loan. If I'd bought a home with 0 savings and never asked why, would I still be smiling at Sunday dinners, not knowing what was stolen from me? Probably. But I'm glad it didn't go that way. Because this is freedom, not just financial, emotional. So if you're reading this and you're where I was 6 months ago, broken, betrayed, unsure if standing up for yourself is even worth it, let me say this. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is stop calling something family just because you share DNA. Sometimes walking away isn't the end, it's the beginning.